Welcome to Bounce Back Stronger, the podcast that explores ways to find peace and purpose no matter what happens. I'm your host, Donna Ferris, and today we have Active Peace Yoga founder, Reggie Hubbard, with us. A little about Reggie. Reggie's journey into yoga began in 2014 during a time of extreme professional adversity. What started as a personal practice soon evolved into a way of life, leading him to become a 500-hour certified yoga teacher, studying with some of the most respected teachers in the field. Now he shares his practice with members of Congress, staffers, activists, and individuals from all walks of life, helping them cultivate peace and balance in high-pressure environments. Beyond teaching yoga, Reggie is a senior political strategist advocating for diversity and inclusion in the wellness industry and guiding the yoga community to become more engaged in the world around them. With a background spanning global marketing, government relations, and even presidential campaigning, he bridges the worlds of mindfulness and activism in a truly unique way. Reggie, thank you for joining us on Bounce Back Stronger. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Happy to be here, Don. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, I met you through Sharon Salzberg. She gave me your name, and then she posted your resistance training, and I signed up right away because I was looking for something like so many of us, I think, are of ways to honor both our spiritual mindfulness training and really finding a way to react to what's happening with love,
Yeah.
and which is not necessarily our instinct, at least in the first case, right?
Yeah, and that's a natural outcome, right? I mean, you should be outraged, right? We're being blatantly lied to. We're being blatantly exploited, right? So to manage outrage with loving kindness has been like the richest lesson
Yes.
of my spiritual practice, right? Like A and B, I've recently had a stroke, right? And so I don't have the physical capacity to bear rage. It's not good for my nervous system. There are aspects to my neurology that are nascent. And I was talking to my best friend recently. I was just like, brother, like, because he was like, so how are you? I was like, man, I don't belong here, man. Right? Like, I'm good at this human thing, I guess, but I don't belong here. And he said, "What do you mean?" I told him, I was like, "Don't get it twisted. Like, that's not a fatalistic sentence. It's derivative of the fact that I most recently had a near-death experience. There's no such thing as a minor stroke. You know what I mean? Anything that attacks the cardiovascular nervous system is primal. And to in the past 10 and a half months go from almost being out of here to partial paralysis to ridiculous levels of recovery. And the energy that took over in my recovery is not here.
Yeah.
That energy looked at my body and was just like, the body had a stroke, but we're going to get over that.
Because we need you, Reggie.
Yeah, right. So that energy, to be connected to that energy, I'm like, whoa, what? And most recently, especially in the context of political events, having a near-death experience has just shifted we said this in pre-production, I'm just not tethered to this world anymore. Like connected for sure, but
Yeah.
tethered, mm-mm. I'm here to serve the higher order. So I'm seeking to align myself with that
Yeah.
and kind of divorce myself from the machinations of the human experience.
And it's interesting because I've had several people on recently, all kind of saying the same thing. We need to be in the fifth dimension, not worrying about this stuff that's happening.
And the other thing too is that it's also the year of the wood snake on the lunar calendar, right? So
Yes.
like
God.
because it's the snake energy requires friction to shed what no longer is supposed to be on you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So this friction is required for your new skin to be emerge, right? You don't shed your new skin, you aren't alive,
That's right.
you know. in the reptilian analogy, right? So that's a biological metaphor. That's not hippie stuff. Like if snakes don't shed their skin, they don't live. So we need to, I have to embrace that energy, because to some extent my stroke experience was a molting.
Yeah.
You know, to come back to the level of recovery that I've had meant that I had to divorce myself from what some of my doctors said to me. Mr. Hubbard, we don't know if you'll blah, 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 blah. Don, I've shared this with you in some of the classes you've taken, but when the doctors told me I had a stroke, the first thing I did was this. A stroke. Okay. And just kept playing as I assessed what was happening on all the levels. Sound and connection to sound, which connects you to the transcendence of the spiritual experience viscerally. Like this sonic experience, this menagerie behind me nursed me back into the level of health that I'm in right now.
And you're teaching again, right? You're actually teaching physical classes, which is incredible.
Yeah, 10 months later.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So I don't have the time to stress out about man doing what man does. And that's not from the sense, and I think you know this, but for those who are listening, it's not to say that I'm above it.
No.
I'm not. I'm in it. And probably in it more deeply than others because I see the delusions.
You know them from the work that you used to do.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right. And still,
it's like, you're like, right.
Yeah. right. It's just there.
Yeah.
And what I can't see from experience, my nervous system, because it's so fragile, it's a blessing because I sense subtle energy. You know, if someone's like lying, I can sense that. It doesn't, quite literally, it doesn't ring true.
No.
We're vibrational beings. So if I'm speaking to you, it's a call. And the response, like this dance is always happening. You're just not aware of it. So I'm aware at finer levels of neurological understanding. Like I hear like rainbows now.
Wow.
Like the frequency of I can't explain it, but that's what's happened since my stroke, right? There's some things that I hear, and at first I was like, I feel like is that a rainbow? And then I went outside and I was like, yeah, how did I hear that? You know, it's just like, what? Right? And that's happened at least like 10 times.
It's interesting because you were always attuned to sound anyway, and then it enhanced that capability in a way, right? Stroke obviously very difficult, but it gave you that additional capability. That's pretty impressive.
There's a Japanese, I can't think of the word, it's tradition called, I think it's Kitsugi, where the beauty is in the break.
Yeah.
So to a large extent, the stroke was the break.
Yeah.
That allowed the beauty of surrender, resilience. Funny story is that at the end of my inpatient recovery, I mean, my stroke story, I need to write this down and tell the story because it's like the Iliad, the Odyssey. It's just a lot. I made a promise to my partner. I was like, honey, I'm going to try my best to be boring. But it seems as though the fates...
That's not going to be the case, Reggie.
It seems as though the fates have predisposed me to other things. But I seek to be Clark Kent as much as possible.
But
as opposed to like, whoa, right? So at the end of a ridiculous experience where April 1st was when the stroke took place. Yeah, no fooling, April 1st, which is also a date that I had already selected as my reborn day because in 2013, I made a commitment to my health and well-being. So for me to have the stroke on a day that I already commemorate, wow.
Yeah.
My teaching practice was launched on April 2nd. There's all these things that happen in April. And in the course of my recovery, to go from perfectly okay, I thought, to having the stroke, knowing the stroke was happening, to somehow summon the power. Thank you, ancestors, for. I'll tell you a little bit about the stroke. It helps in the context of what I'm sharing. So, March 31st, I'm in Southern Virginia at my family church in the hills of Virginia, like founded in 1865 by free black people. So, like roots, Black Baptist church in the mountains. And Easter Sunday, me and my girlfriend are headed to a wedding in Georgia. Stay overnight at a hotel 4 miles outside of Columbia, South Carolina. Wake up around 4:30 in the morning to go to the bathroom, come out of the bathroom, hit the floor.
Oh my gosh.
My leg just went out. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And I'm laying on the floor and I try to move my leg. It doesn't move.
Oh.
So I'm like, I'm having a mother stroke.
Oh my God.
I'm having a stroke. In South Carolina? What? Right, and so just was like, okay, know what's happening immediately. Seek to call out to my dear one in a way that doesn't alarm her. Like, she's going to be alarmed when I'm like, I'm having a stroke. You know what I mean? That's going to be alarm in and of itself. So how do I awaken her so she can be present and not freaking out? Because every second counts. I know that.
Yes. Yeah.
You know? So I'm laying on the floor and I'm just like, Alexis. And she's like, are you okay? I think it's my speech slurring. What? Blah, blah, blah. And calm, focus. It's my speech slurring. I'm having a stroke. And she's like, a stroke? I'm like, yes. Like, this is what's happening. So somehow the leg starts to work again. And because I'm huge, right? You know what I mean? Because I'm also just like, if I can't move, whoa, this sucks.
Yeah.
And leg starts to work again. And she's like, we got to go to the hospital. I'm like, before we go to the hospital, I was like, I got to play some sound. So,
oh my gosh.
I took this sound bowl here because I knew, like, from this moment forward, I was like, my life is radically different. Like, whoa. So I'm like, just trying to steel myself, right? Trying to be like, okay.
You got to raise it. You got to raise the vibration. You were raising the vibration, right?
Yeah. I was just like, I gotta, like. And then I walked out on my own power.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, crazy.
That's crazy.
I know, right? The story is wild, right? So walk into the emergency room on my own power, get settled in, then everything started, like, go
everything
bad.
Went.
You know what I mean?
Everything
went bad. Leg, go to the bathroom, come out of the bathroom, leg just starts to just not work. And get wheeled back into the emergency room. My blood pressure spikes to like 250.
Yikes.
Over 160, some number that I super high, right?
Yeah.
And I see a look in the doctor's face. I was like, this dude sees death all the time. And he's looking at me like that.
Wow.
Whoa. So somehow, again, ancestors, meditation, medication, all the things, blood pressure comes down and I stabilize. Get wheeled into a couple scans and all these other things. When I'm in like the big MRI tube, my leg stops moving, stops working. And I couldn't move it.
Oh no.
And that kind of broke my heart.
Yeah.
But mindfulness, I still had sense. I didn't have motor function, but I had sensory function.
Right.
In fact, when they offered to put me in a bigger bed once I got out of the step down, and they asked me if I wanted to be in a bigger bed, I said no, because I wanted to feel my foot.
Yeah.
On the edge of the bed. I couldn't move anything, but I could feel it.
Right.
So that gave me peace.
Yeah.
I was talking to a yoga friend, and she was just like, she started crying. I was like, well, you know, what specifically are you crying about? She was just like, we talk a lot in yogic circles about single pointed focus.
Yeah. And you did it.
Right. And so when things are swirling around you, you were able to summon single pointed focus.
Yeah.
Right. So go through all of this wild stuff in South Carolina. We still have to make it from South Carolina to Washington. I live in Washington,
Yeah,
D.C.
you
and
were well not close.
yeah, I was in stable condition, right? Like critical and stable condition, right? So there is no interstate ambulatory service. So me and my dear one had to drive from damn Columbia, South Carolina, back to Washington.
Which, no offense
Luckily,
to anybody in Columbia, South Carolina, but that is in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, but luckily I was in the second best hospital in South Carolina.
South Carolina. That's awesome.
Ancestors, like
Yeah, if you
spirits,
had to have
everything,
that happen there.
people looking out for me,
Good.
and get back to Washington, like had gone from immobility in the whole leg to immobility from the knee down in a couple days,
Wow.
and had enough strength to get on a walker by the end of that week. So get stable enough, because my whole thing, I was like, okay, sound bowls, okay, practice. Like, yo, you gotta get stable. Like this ain't your home. Like you gotta get it together. And they're not gonna discharge me if I'm not like at a certain level, right? So like get to that level, make it to Washington on my own power. That's another story. We don't have time for this, but it's ridiculous. Like think like Iliad meets Odyssey meets like Harry Potter. Like it's some wild stuff. Get to Washington, and I was in inpatient rehab for 4 days. The Monday, 1 week after the stroke, was the solar eclipse.
Oh, right.
So
That was huge.
I'm at 94% in a wheelchair outside playing a gong the entire time. And people are like, aren't you worried? I'm like, shh, I almost died last week, man.
I'm
Like
good.
I'm not worried about I'm in this energy.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? So playing the gong, get to the end of that week, very long story short, neurologist comes up to me and is just like, we've never seen a recovery like this. I was like, I haven't either. I've never, this is the first time I've ever done this. And that's for my first stroke.
Me either. Like, what do you want me to say? Okay.
Exactly. So I asked the doctor, I was like, so what's my homework, doc? She looks me in my face. That whole story was for this sentence. She's like, you're a mindfulness teacher. You know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
from day 6 to now has been like the deepest mindfulness practice of my life.
And that's what we have to do
Right,
right now.
right, right,
Be here now.
right.
Like I'm reading that book right now.
Mm-hmm,
Again, right? Be here
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
now. And I'm keep just saying to myself, just be here now. Now.
Right.
This time. Yeah.
Right. Because, and I said this recently in a teaching where I was like, so I kind of understand why I had the stroke when I did, because like I didn't know that it was going to be the dawn of the apocalypse. But at the same time, you just got to put one foot in front of the other, right? And I am adept at harvesting miracles out of shit situations.
You are.
Just did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And maybe too, like you're not as invested in what's happening, right? Because you've seen the divine. You've seen what can happen and what you can do when you connect to those
I'm
energies.
here, and the last time, I was intimately involved in the last resistance. I worked for Move On,
Yeah,
was one of the lead strategists on impeachment. I have fought this demon.
that's right.
Y'all go for it. Not as a
No, 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 no.
But this isn't my assignment now.
What is your resistance now? This is a good way to segue into the resistance training that you
Yeah.
are teaching, which I found incredibly helpful because it doesn't ground us in the fight that's happening, the non-divine fight that is happening right now.
Right.
It grounds us in higher planes.
Right.
And I thought it was incredibly soothing for me. So thank you. And let's talk a little bit about it. And
You're
also the
welcome.
friction idea that you started with every practice, which I thought was so helpful.
So I'm situated in the unceded territory of the Piscataway, Washington, D.C., and Maryland. So there is an outsized impact of
Mm,
the
mm,
ridiculousness where I am. Like, so the
yes.
destruction of the federal government is taking place real time in a region that is dependent on the federal government.
Yeah.
So my teaching practice is named Active Peace. I didn't know it was going to be a Dharma transmission.
No. Reggie, I wrote a book called Bounce Back Stronger, Finding Peace and Purpose No Matter What Happens. I released it a year ago.
Mm.
I had no idea
Right. Thought
that
it just sounded cool. Just-
I was like, I kind of
Shoot.
wanted to share some of the tools that helped me when I went through my really rough 3 years of life. Who knew
Right.
that, that I would be, you know, rereading my book? I mean,
Yeah, right.
because
Right.
living my
Right.
book. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so I didn't know it was going to be a Dharma transmission. And
No.
so, to answer your question about resistance, it's actually a funny story, and I'll keep it short. Sound practice has healed me from two neurological exhausting experiences. So one is when I worked for Move On for 4 years, from 17 to 21. I bought these sound bowls with my severance and
Mm,
started playing for myself.
mm,
Got myself together, started playing for other people. Perfected the ability to transmit over the interwebs and teach over the interwebs. And now my resistance is playing these gongs virtually or in person. Like the amount of you, if you knew how my dance card was with respect to sound gigs here now,
I bet.
why, how and why is that resistance? Because when the weapon is fear,
Yes,
the weapon being used against us is, it is an express attack on our neurological system.
it is.
The resistance I offer is this. People get a 90-minute break from talking. They get a 90-minute break from this posture.
Yeah.
They are in healing community with 28 other strangers. And the vibrations that I'm sending out individually and collectively are muting whatever's coming from the White House. So subtle. But the victory will not be achieved through gross means.
Mm,
Right? We are being asked in this moment to elevate our consciousness.
yes.
For all this talk about Christianity, I grew up in the church, and none of these Christians are talking about what the Apostle Paul said. Apostle Paul had to be a yogi because he said, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Hmm.
We are called, regardless of our religious affiliation or spiritual practice, to renew our mind. They are assaulting our mind with low vibration. So if I overtly and covertly play a higher vibration, I'm attuning your mind to not pay attention to that.
And that's what we need to do.
Right.
We have to evolve
Or die.
or die. We have to shed the skin.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Can you
So
talk
that's
a
my resistance.
Yeah, and that's what you're teaching. And it's also you know, facing things with love as opposed to the other. And it
I
took,
mean,
I don't know about you, it took me a minute. I mean, maybe it didn't because you had gone through what you just gone through, but it took me a minute to get there, right? It didn't, day one, I was not, and I have to say your 3 sessions helped quite a bit.
so you've been in my classes. Like, I
Yes.
have all the classical trainings
Yes.
and have been with the Sharons, the Jacks, the Taras, as well as, Rod, like all these other people. And I take all of that and in true Black American fashion, make it jazz.
I love that.
You
I love
know,
that. And
so
you did.
thank you, teachers, but this is my flavor on it,
Yeah.
right? So the ability to hold that space is interesting, but I think also essential in these times.
Yeah.
Like I told you, when the doctor was like, "You're a mindfulness teacher, you know what to do," I was like, "That's the laziest prescription I've ever heard." But I was like, thank you for calling, not even calling my bluff, but this is like 9 days after the stroke, so I'm still kind of way out of it. She saw something in me and my energy. So it wasn't the laziest prescription. She was actually like breathing life into a
Into,
nation renaissance.
yeah. Yeah. Into your healing power,
Right,
which is what you're sharing
right,
with the people that are coming to your
right.
practices.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the friction thing. It's obviously stuck with me.
Yeah, so one of the things that our society, United States, American pop culture, and I have the unique experience of being fully Black and Southern, but also went to Yale.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
And you
like
have an
I'm
MBA, you have,
right, so
I mean, you have all the stuff.
multifaceted
Yes.
and stuff. So I've had to like weave in and out of worlds, right? I've had to sometimes come up against friction. But most people live very comfortable lives. And in moments like this, and in anything on the spiritual path, you're going to encounter friction. You pray for wisdom, you'll receive adversity. Like
That's
you
right.
pray for patience, your patience will be tried. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
So like friction is part of the spiritual dance. And so one of the things I try and do on, my pedagogy is multidisciplinary, what I mean, and polysensory, right? So while you're creating friction in the palms, this is offering a massage to the palms, but at the same time, I'm like, look, you can't avoid friction. Friction is a necessary element of the human and the transformative experience. So can you play with friction? And then as you play with friction, apply your magic to yourself, right?
Yes, beautiful.
In order for us to grow, evolve, and heal, like I had to heal from a stroke is friction in the mind. I could not move my foot for 6 months. First it was the leg, like it is friction to consistently hope for the best when nothing is pointing towards it. That's friction.
That's friction.
So I had to be like, how can I be playful with this friction? Like, what can I do to change my psychological understanding of friction? So rather than being averse to it, embrace it.
And
And
work with it.
yeah, Don, I'm a percussionist.
Yeah.
Friction is what
Is
makes these beautiful sounds.
That's right.
So that's how I've been able to change the frame and play with it.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the Warrior series in particular. My whole practice now is all Warrior series.
Oh, fun. Mm-hmm.
Because I had a teacher that used to say, why do we have warriors in yoga? And because you have to be a spiritual warrior, and that's what we're being asked to do.
Yeah.
And so we got to practice those stances that can't be moved
Right.
no matter what happens.
I got a Murti last year, about 2 weeks before the stroke. It's, so you can see over this shoulder. is
Hmm.
Shiva in the Nataraj,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
right? There are 108 postures in that dance. And the last one is Shiva has his hand, like he's stepping on the demon of ignorance here, has his hand on the demon and is kind of flying.
Wow.
The circle of samsara has been broken and he's at one with ignorance. Because in order for you to become enlightened, you have to touch ignorance. In order for you to be a light warrior, light worker, you have to touch the dark.
You have to touch your shadow.
You have to.
Yeah.
And I probably said it in the series that you were in, but like there are a lot of love and light folks out here. I'm not afraid of the dark. I talk about death. I talk about the stroke. I work in politics. You know what I mean? And my spiritual practices help me as a Black person get through all of it. So if you want that antiseptic, boring, everything's great, keep it. But if you want to talk about real stuff, I'm your teacher. Life as it is, and confronting what is to create what we want, that's the world I live in. But, oh, I'm just going to sit here and hope everything's okay and talk in a high voice. Those days are gone. That serves no one.
Yeah. I mean, we can't not see it. And you
Right.
have to figure out how you're going to raise your vibration and not get drugged down by it. What didn't I ask? What did we not get to? What do you want to leave people with?
Especially at this moment in time.
Especially at this moment in time.
Yeah. Life is meant to be experienced. Life is meant to be lived. In Buddhist practice, we talk a lot about the joy and the sorrows. All of that has value and merit. Because turning towards sorrow, individually and collectively, is the time-worn path of healing and liberation. So the tough times that we're in are holding a mirror to our face.
Yes.
And if you like what you see, cool. If you don't like what you see, what will you do? We cannot avoid what is being put in our face. Because if you close your eyes, it will hiss. You close your ears, it'll breathe fire. So your best bet, trust me, as someone who's been battling a lot of spiritual, look it in the face. Whatever it is. And you may not win the fight, but you'll gain strength. You'll gain perspective. And each step toward healing and liberation that you take individually manifests exponentially in the collective.
Yes.
When I took my healing journey seriously, I had no idea of the now tens of thousands of people that I've been able to influence. I was trying to help myself, but not from a sense of ego, from a sense of like, now I got this wisdom, how can I help somebody else with it? So in this moment, when we are being shown what is true,
Yes.
just because it's true doesn't mean that it's the truth. What I mean by that is we have agency to quite literally almost create the world that we want. We have to speak it, have the courage to speak it, and invest our time, thoughts, and talents in it. So like if you hold a vision for something beautiful, invest your focus in that as opposed to doom scrolling or, I don't even speak the name of the administration, not because I'm avoiding it, but because my chi, my prana is better served by talking to you or writing a book or playing gongs with low light, or doing an Instagram live with my gongs because people are freaking out and my channel is the one place they can find active peace. So rather than being like, can you believe, I don't care what they're doing. I'm here to help those who are afflicted. I'm here to shine a light to those who need to see darkness. And for those that are afraid of darkness, I'm here to show them that you can't avoid it. It has its place in our world.
And on the other side, there's light.
Correct.
And we don't know what light is until we see the darkness.
The darkest time of the day is right before the sun rises.
That's right. Reggie, thank you so, so much. I appreciate your time and what you're doing.
It's my honor to be here. And what I'd like to do, I want to play for like 30 seconds.
That would be amazing.
Sound for me has been medicine.
Yeah.
And it is the one thing that gets us instantly in touch with who we really are.
Yeah.
It connects you to spaciousness. It sends a message to the nervous system to relax, expand.
And you have evidence of that.
Yeah.
You are walking evidence
Right.
of that.
And that's what I tell folks. My understanding of sound is spiritual, right? And it's not academic. I'm not trying to connect notes. I'm not playing music. I'm allowing these vibrations offered in love to ripple and do what they do. Sound is the thing that calms the nervous system, stimulates the healing instinct in the body, and allows for the magic that exists in this thing that we don't understand yet use all the time to avail itself in a world so desperately in need of magic.
And you can't ignore the moment when you're listening to sound. I think
Right.
too, right? And when she said mindfulness to you, it's the sound healing gets you right into the absolute be here now. There's no be here later with the sound.
No.
No, you can't go ding. Oh, I'll wait. I'll think about the future. No, it's here right now. And it's just
Right.
it is incredibly. It's a perfect example of mindfulness.
Yeah. So I'm going to play 3 sound bowls and 1 gong. And so let some harmonies, probably for about a minute.
Okay.
And the invitation for you and the listener is to just find a seat that is supported by your energy. Feel connected to the ground as a sense of support and from which you root. Not something you walk over. You root from the ground to rise.
Mm.
You are in partnership with the ground. And then from that sense of groundedness in the body, allow the shoulders to be spacious and the heart to be open. Because heart energy in times of lies and callousness is a superpower. And as you allow the heart to open, the feet to be connected to the ground, invite a deeper breath in through the nose, then exhale out nose or mouth, whichever is more spacious and free. Another inhale through the nose, exhale out nose or mouth. So the notes I'm going to play are G sharp, F, and D sharp. And as you're ready, release the meditation.
I needed that. Thank you, Reggie.
You're welcome.
And all the information about Reggie will be in the release notes. And if you want to learn more about his classes, that information will be there. That's all for today. If you want to learn more about Reggie's work, classes, and videos, those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, drop a review, or share it with your friends and family. That's the best way to get it in the hands of those who may benefit. And if my daughters Sienna and Sylvia are listening, I just want you to know how proud I am of you. And I love you so, so, so much. Bye now.